All right, here's an email I've been putting off redoing. Not redoing, but this email was sent in fairly recently, and it was mixed in with a whole pile of emails in the video, obviously, and I promised to repost it in its own video. All right, so here we go. Listen to this. This email is titled Natural Law, the Key to Fitting Together the Puzzle Pieces. Share my name at the end and anything else in this email. Steve, this is the 5th time I've sent in this email. Forgive me if you end up coming across it more than once, twice, but I know it is very important to the fitting together of your and others' puzzles. I am resending it today in response to your question of why on your October 7th, 2021 video. I've been watching your videos, binge watching them actually, for the last few weeks. I do not have a Sasquatch story, but I have some information that is very relevant to the Sasquatch situation. It will take a bit to lay out, but I'm sure you'll find it enriching. Today's video from March 1st, quote, angry and caution, end quote, 2021, I believe, as I'm resending this year's letter in 2023, was very powerful. The powerful part being when you were talking personally about what is going on in the world. I felt compelled to chime in. First off, you're not babbling, not to me. You're talking very clearly, even profoundly. I've been studying the occult for years now. Hear me out. The word occult simply means, quote, hidden from sight, end quote. Occultism is the study of hidden knowledge. This occult knowledge can be used for evil, the dark occult, or for good, the light occult. I'll quickly share some of what is contained in this occult knowledge, hence I will de-occult it. It must be stated right here, you are correct. There are dark people running this planet, dark occultists. The dark occultists use this hidden knowledge as a power differential against those that do not know it, those they wish to control. For if those they wanted to control knew this hidden knowledge, they would be uncontrollable. This knowledge is the foundation of all regions, all of the mystery schools. That said, here's some of that esoteric knowledge. Wisdom is not what we know, but what we do with what we know, our actions. Our actions are what these dark occultists must control. This is where rights are rooted in. Our rights refer directly and in exact proportion to our actions. Our rights are anything that does not cause harm to another sentient being. Thus, wrongs or wrong action, that which is wrong to do, is the opposite of our rights. Our wrong is anything that does cause harm to another sentient being. All wrongs are a form of theft, the taking of something that does not belong to you. The wrong is the initiation of force causing harm, or in other words, violence. Bracket. It needs to be stated that self-defense is never violent. If someone initiates harm unto you, then you have the right to defend against such actions up to and including the taking of the offender's life. Bracket. These are the true, quote, 7 deadly sins, end quote. Murder, the taking of life that does not belong to you. Stealing, the taking of property that does not belong to you. Willfully lying, the taking of someone's ability to make an informed decision. Assault, the taking of someone's bodily security. Trespass, the taking of someone's security in their living space. Rape, the stealing of someone's sexuality. Coercion, the stealing of someone's free will decision making. What this dark ruling class has done is they have obfuscated this truth from those they wish to control. They have occulted it to their benefit. The above rights and wrongs are natural laws governing the consequences of the behavior, bracket, actions, end bracket, of those beings with the ability to know the difference. Beings with free will, or in other words, humans. Rights and thus wrongs can be definitely known. No one needs to believe me. It can be observed to be the case to be true. This is moral objectivism. This is the law of God / universe / nature / creation, whatever you want to call it. The dark ruling class has convinced humanity throughout the millennia that there is no moral objectivity, that rights are granted by an authority, meaning other men. This is moral relativism, that the truth cannot be definitely known, that men get to make it up as they go. The monarchs of times past would decree their right to rule. Over time, people became hip to this and could see through this lie. The monarchs of old didn't go away. These families just went into their background and created a front from which they can rule from. This front is known as government. Interestingly enough, government comes from the Latin, quote, gubernare, end quote, to control, and, quote, mente, end quote, the mind. Mind control. These rulers just made a new monarchy called an oligarchy, which is what government is. The illusion of freedom in a democracy is just that, an illusion. Democracy has no bearing in moral objectivism. It is morally relativistic and run on man's laws. Democracy is mob rule, the majority dictating to the minority with no concern for individual rights. This, however, makes the people think they are in control, that the required illusion to have the people go along with this system of slavery. But ultimately, the ruling class runs governments and the laws. Bracket, I should know that the USA was formed as a constitutional republic, not a democracy. The Constitution is a special document because it attempted to enshrine these natural rights, although this document is not what gives any person their rights. They have them as a birthright. Bracket. I had to briefly lay out to make the point backing up what I've heard you say. I'll paraphrase, but you have mentioned that our purpose here in this life is to learn for ourselves, to make our own decisions, but that we have passed that off to, quote, authorities, end quote. Your intuition aligns with the truths outlined above. Interesting? It is profound when you learn that our actions individually and collectively dictate the type of world we live in. This brings us to the natural law that we will manifest what we put forth. Right action, based on knowledge and understanding, leads to freedom. If our actions as a collective of individuals were right, we would live on a planet of plenty, peace, love, and freedom. Wrong action, based in ignorance and confusion, leads to slavery. If our actions as a collective of individuals were wrong, we would live on a planet of scarcity, fear, death, and slavery. Tell me which our planet reflects now, especially now it is so obvious. We are a morally relativistic society worldwide. This has been the modus operandi for millennia, to keep the people from understanding their rights. Instead, legal systems, man's law has become the norm, convincing people that what is legal is what is right. Nothing could be further from the truth, even though some laws do happen to be right. Let me reiterate that actions are the third part of a trinity of being. Actions are based upon a person's understanding, which is in turn based on the information someone takes in. Information, understanding, action, which is wisdom. As you brought up in today's video, number one, the mainstream media lies to the people. Number two, as someone gets hugely popular, they likely get a talking to. Number three, you yourself do not follow the mainstream media because you're aware of the lying. Number four, you quit listening to Joe Rogan when you detected the obvious censorship going on his platform. Bracket. I used to listen to Rogan too and stopped for the same reason. End bracket. What is the common link between all those points? The control of information. Why? To ultimately control a person's understanding and thus a person's actions. You clearly do not like your actions controlled, and that is because you have taken in a different information set than the general public, as I have. This is why information is so paramount to control. This is why the dark ruling class control the media. Information needs to be controlled, or you lose control of people, because in the end you lose control of their actions. Fear is an effective tool to get a person to take in the information you want them to take in, which sends them down the path to being a controllable moral relativist. I hope I explained that well enough, because it applies to everything from C-vid to to Sasquatch, to 9/11, to whatever else you can lay it over. Herein lies your answer as to the question you have postulated, where you have wondered what it is that makes people act like sheep, hiding from people what their rights are, and thus the rights of others. Do this through the control of information using fear. I hope it is already becoming clear that this explains what is going on with C, vid. Fear thus leading to propaganda, bracket information, thus leading to 1. An erroneous understanding leading to wrong action. How do we know this situation is wrong? The seventh deadly sin, coercion. This whole thing is coercion. There would be no P, dem, ick, if it wasn't being enforced violently by the state and all the order followers. Going back to step 1, there would be no P, dem, ick, if everyone stopped watching their TV and taking in that information, fear. Finally, ending with Sasquatch, people who have been brought up to believe in, quote, authority, end quote, are in a fearful state. Why do people get ridiculed, harassed, harmed, fired from jobs, etc., for telling others about the experiences they have had with Sasquatch? Because those they tell have lost the ability to think for themselves. If the, quote, authority, end quote, hasn't said it or acknowledged it, then it's nonsense. People harassing and harming others, assault, for telling their experience are people who have no understanding of rights. These are people who are in that state of fear, as shown is the case of people who are under the control by this dark ruling class. As you have said, Steve, people react in these ways out of fear. They do not want to acknowledge this might be the reality. Like anything else, then, the Sasquatch situation and how the, quote, authorities, end quote, and the people who believe in those, quote, authorities, end quote, react to it is all about control of the people, starting with the control of information. Very interesting how you have mentioned that people need to get out of the fear and tell their stories, as well as get back out in nature. This is exactly right. In other words, you are saying people need to take back control from authorities, which would include authority of Sasquatch itself, right? Whether from the side of the storyteller or the person listening to the story. Looking into and questioning about 9/11 leads to people who cannot be controlled. Looking into and questioning about C, vid, 1.9 leads to people who cannot be controlled. Looking into and questioning about the Federal Reserve and private central banking leads to people who cannot be controlled. Looking into and questioning about our true spiritual nature leads to people who cannot be controlled. Looking into and questioning about Sasquatch leads to people who cannot be controlled. I hope I've done a decent job explaining the underlying principles of tying all these seemingly separate things together. Maybe Sasquatch is indeed a metaphysical teacher in the most profound sense. And no, you are not babbling. Give yourself more credit. We are in a spiritual war, good versus evil. Thanks, Steve. Ian Wayland. Then he leaves a quick note for everyone. Says, Mark Passio of whatonearthishappening.com is someone everyone needs to get familiar with. This is my daily recommendation of someone people need to hear. There's no other teacher like this man. You'll discover through his work why the world is the way that it is and our roles unknowingly in this manifestation, as I described above. So there you go. Delivered on its own as promised. Take from it what you will or leave it, but it's pretty simple to take in and understand, right? And it's pretty simple rules to live by. The rules possibly implemented into us a long time ago. But hopefully it'll help a lot of people out there that may be confused, a lot of people out there that react with anger and don't think, right? A lot of people that might just realize that, yep, you do look to authority to what may or may not be, and what a huge mistake that is, right? So, start thinking for yourself if you haven't already. We'll be back with more.